Lane Regional School Board, I find that due to the state of emergency declared by the governor as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, and in accordance with the governor's emergency order number 12 pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. Please note that there's no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to this meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the governor's emergency order. However, in accordance with the emergency order, I am confirming that we are utilizing Zoom for this electronic meeting. All members of the board have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during this meeting through this platform, and the public has access to contemporaneously listen. We previously gave notice to the public of the necessary information for accessing the meeting, including how to access the meeting using Zoom or telephonically. Instructions have also been provided on the website of the board at timberlane.net/Zoom TRSB. If anybody has a problem, please call 382-6541, extension 3955. Please note that all votes that are taken during this meeting shall be done by roll call vote. Let's start the meeting by taking a roll call attendance. When each member states their presence, please also state whether there's anyone in the room with you during this meeting, which is required under the right to know law. Kat, can you take the roll call,
Brian
please?
Boyle.
I am present. I'm alone in the room. Other family members are in the household.
Lee Doobie. Not here. Dr. Farah.
I'm here. I'm alone in the room. There are other members of my family present in the household.
Barbara Kishka.
Present, and I'm alone in the residence.
Sheila Lowe's.
Here, alone in the residence.
Sarah Muckamer.
I am here. I am alone in my office. There are other members of my family in my house.
Sean O'Neill. Not here. Kristen Savage.
I am present in my house with other members of my family also present.
Jennifer Silva. Dr. Cochran.
I'm present. I'm alone in my office, and there's another family member in the house.
And Jenna Horan.
Here alone in the room, but there are other family members in the residence.
That completes the roll.
Okay, thank you. If you could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation
Under
under
God,
God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Moving on to the approval of the minutes. We have the minutes of the, am I on here?
Yeah, they're in there. Both sets.
11/19 meeting. The public minutes, looking for a motion to approve the minutes of the 11/19 meeting.
So moved.
second,
Bill makes the motion, Brian seconds. Is there any discussion? Kat, could you take a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Boyle.
yes.
Doobie, still not here. Nope. Dr. Farah.
Yes.
Mrs. Kishka.
Abstain.
Ms. Lowe's.
Yes.
Mrs. Muckamer.
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill, still not here.
Yes, I am.
You are here. Well, you weren't here in the first roll call. My apologies.
I'm
I
here
was
now
being
too.
detained by another member.
Sorry, thank you, Sean.
Sean, since you're here, can you just announce that whether or not there's anybody else that you're
Oh, yeah,
alone in
there's
the
somebody
room?
in my
so-
house and in my office by myself.
Thank you.
Jen.
I am alone in my office with other people in the house somewhere else.
And Sean, what's your vote for the minutes?
I'll abstain.
Mrs. Savage.
Yes,
Mrs. Silva.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to the non-public minutes, there's an error there. Sheila had exited the room. I think it was Brian Boyle that made that motion.
Sure. That works.
So we can correct that. These were not sealed. Are there any, is there a motion to accept the non-public?
I'll make that
Minutes.
motion to accept them as amended.
Sean makes a motion.
I'll
Second,
second.
Sheila seconds. Kat, could you take the roll call vote, please?
gotta be faster, Brian.
Mr. Boyle,
Yes.
no Lee, still.
Julie,
Dr. Farah,
Yes.
Mrs. Kishka,
Abstain.
Ms. Lowe's,
yes.
Mrs. Muckamer,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mrs. Savage,
Yes.
Mrs. Silva.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Moving on, Jenna?
Yes, thank you so much. At Sandown TLC, they are having Polar Express days next week that they're very excited about, complete with a pajama day, golden tickets, and a story time from a virtual conductor. At Sandown North, Mrs. O'Sullivan's first grade class and Mrs. St. Hilaire's remote class of 3rd and 4th graders recently met virtually for their first session of reading together as reading buddies. In Mrs. De Benedetto's 2nd grade class, students wrote persuasive essays prior to Thanksgiving from the point of view of the turkey. They were convincing us not to eat them because they aren't really turkeys. Students had a lot of fun creating these incognito turkeys. At Danville Elementary School, they recently finished their Kindness Spirit Week and students and teachers all looked amazing. In all 4 of the elementary schools, 1st graders are in all 4 days and 2nd graders are soon to follow, and the students and teachers are very excited about this. At the middle school, they are selling masks in gray or black as a great way to show and spread school spirit. There's a Google Doc on the middle school's Facebook page for anyone interested. At the high school, congratulations to all of the Project Hope members and the winners of their virtual 5K that was very successful, and to all of the Honor Society members that are finally feeling like things are going back to normal with regular meetings and clubs and everything. At the last meeting, I discussed a sense of community that seemed to be failing in students across the district. And I spoke to students and some teachers in the high school, and across the board, a lot of them said, yes, I know that there's an issue, but I don't really know how to fix it. Some students say that they want more mask breaks because they feel that that makes them feel like more of a community and more connected to one another. But teachers across the board said, I can't feel like I'm connected to my students if they all keep their cameras off. So I really think that this is a joint effort. To any students watching right now, to any teachers watching, to any parents watching, we all need to work together to, students, put your cameras on, even if you feel uncomfortable with it, and teachers take a couple of extra minutes just to help your students feel more acclimated to this very strange climate that we're in right now that's constantly changing. But overall, I got really positive remarks from students and teachers in this last week of talking to everyone, and it was really nice to connect to everyone and have everyone kind of realize that a sense of community is really needed here and people wanted to work towards it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I will also advocate for turning on your cameras. I'm teaching remotely now, and it is difficult teaching if you can't see the students. So even if you only do it a certain portion of the time, I know your teachers are going to appreciate that you're doing that. So thanks, Jenna. Moving on, we have one delegate and individual. That would be Mrs. Hampy. If you could bring her up and allow her to speak, that would be good. Dean?
Good evening. Coral Hampy, Danville TTA President. 'Twas 3 weeks before Christmas when all through the schools, student work was displayed, making the walls look cool. In one class, the kids are on a bear hunt expedition. Maps and math lead to gingerbread, snow, and traditions. World Kindness Day was happily received. Cardigan and kindness, quote, shirts to be believed. The sights, sounds, and tastes of France and Spain delight. Students learn about language and culture without taking a flight. School counselors are busy with committees supporting students or buried in logistics of new cohort elements. Teachers and staff have not been excluded. Food trucks, pies, coffee, tea, and hot chocolate. We are supporting each other wherever needed. Integrating new strategies like never before, we offer instructional videos for the kids to explore. Positive and negative fractions, simplifying algebraic expressions. When the competency is met, we offer congratulations. So many great actions I can't possibly share. So much good stuff, we all deserve fanfare. To be continued, next meeting. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Moving on, current business, school reopening plan. Before I move to that, there are quite a few things in the packets related to this. Thank you. I think it's probably a lot of this is Mr. Pedersen on the COVID dashboard has been updated. There's a data archive. There's current data on COVID. There is weekly data on COVID and chart summary form. So these will all be available after the meeting I know a lot of this is on the website already, so thank you for that. We also had a question from a board member related to a truth table in terms of when the school would have to go to remote. It's because it's not a one number. There are a variety of factors. So I think we're going to be trying to look at that as we move forward. I don't think something that we're going to be able to do at a public meeting, but we've asked that we try to give parents some indication of where we're at in terms of staffing and students so that they can at least have some preparation time if possible. But with the way COVID numbers change, it may or may not. So I'll turn it over. Another thing that I would like the staff to tell us tonight is to just reiterate what grades are in and what days and where we're looking to go, just for everybody's public information. So Mrs. Kanonis, I think that you take the lead on that for the elementary because they're the ones that would be impacted here.
Absolutely, thank you. So currently we have our preschool, pre-K, kindergarten, and grade 1 have been in 4 days a week. They will continue. Grade 2 does start on Monday. They are in Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Wednesday still remains a remote day. And then we will hold until 2 weeks after winter break before we reevaluate whether we can phase in other grades.
Great, thank you. Any questions from the board on that? Board members, is there anything else that you would like to discuss on the school reopening plan right now? Chime in if you want. Okay. It's clear. I know
Barbara
Mr.
had her
Pedersen.
hand up.
Sorry, I
Barbara
missed it. Okay, go ahead, Barbara.
Hi, Dr. Vera. So just reiterating, so for the middle and high school, just make a statement on those that we're not going to be going to 4 days until it's safe, right? And we don't know when that'll be. And then we're working on trying to get it very clear when we look at that weekly COVID dashboard, you know, when so many things go yellow or so many things go red, that's when we're going to switch to remote. Or when so many things go green, that's when we're going to switch to 4 days. Is that correct?
So let me answer that first, Mark. Yes, if we're still using the same grid, and the biggest issue remains staffing. We just got notice this week, for example, that Salem has gone out 2 weeks fully remote, and the messaging that I got from Salem was that this was 100% a staffing issue. We've been at some level of strained for a while with respect to staffing. We're working very hard. We've been filling positions, but at the same point in time, we're losing some positions. I wouldn't be surprised if Salem was at least partially impacted by the fact that some school districts went fully remote in anticipation of the spike, which means that teachers now need accommodations, or parents would need accommodations in order to be able to look after their children. And so that's kind of a spillover effect. We have been running with our 15 pandemic floaters, but in terms of the actual matrix itself, if you look at the level of school impact, Transmission within the school facility is low, 0 or sporadic cases with no evidence of transmission within the school setting. Student absenteeism due to illness, low is 15% or less, and we're at about 8% right now. Staff capacity to conduct classes and school operations is somewhere between normal and strained. We're making it work. Actually, when I say we, the only thing I'm doing is trying to sign off on more paras and more subs, and we're trying to still staff up. But folks at the school level and Mark and Sandy and Lucy have been doing a fabulous job. But at this point in time, we're starting to see more people come out sick for normal things on top of COVID. So Pollard had 10 people out on Monday. It was the first place that I went on Monday morning, hoping that we didn't lose 2 more people overnight. So we've had some significant conversations about this. We really need to message. We did send out a message a while ago to parents, but our biggest fear is that we're balanced, as I've said before, on the edge of a knife. If we have a few people go out, our biggest fear really is that people start to feel ill in the evening, aren't able to contact building administration until the morning, and we're short people. And what we don't want to do is make a call in the morning that says, Pollard is closed or Atkinson is closed, giving parents no option. And so we had a long discussion yesterday with the full administrators group across the district, and really talked about messaging to staff to try and let people know, if they're not feeling well, are we getting sort of a groundswell of people who, you have 6 or 8 people in a building who may or may not be in tomorrow, then what do you do in that case? The middle school was very close today. We were talking at, I'm thinking, Mr. Peterson, 8:30 last night, and trying to get a feel for whether or not we would do it. Sandy Allaire and I volunteered to be at the middle school today if needed, and it went smooth. But my understanding is that some of the classes had to be grouped and put in larger rooms in order to make it work. So it's at a day-to-day level. And when I look at and say staffing is kind of straddling that position, it's because our people have worked so hard to keep kids in the buildings and make this work every day, as I mentioned at the last meeting, that we're making it work. Should we, and that begs the question to me, should we stop because maybe one of the schools wouldn't be able to do it the next day? And I think the benefits of having the kids in school when we can outweigh the preemptive, well, maybe we better go just in case. So that's where we are. We're in a situation where any school or schools on any given day could have an issue. Sandy Allaire actually has a great set of data that she pulled up, and it looks at staff absenteeism, student absenteeism, and Sandy, did you want to give them just a quick summary of that?
Yeah, that was a great graph, Sandy.
Thank you. It's a team effort, but thank you. So what we have started to pull together is that as Dr. Cochran said, we've been impacted with regard to staffing by the numbers of staff members who are on quarantine themselves. So Mr. Pedersen on a weekly basis reports to all of you and via the district dashboard the numbers of positive cases. Beyond those positive cases, we also have increases in the numbers of staff and students that have to quarantine due to close contact or exposure to positive cases or suspected positive cases. So those numbers have increased, which again, at the elementary level require coverage if those people are out of the building. At the secondary level, they require supervision. In many cases, those staff are able to work remotely. In some cases, they aren't. So we're kind of juggling a combination of a need for coverage of the actual classroom for supervision purposes and the need for substitute teachers as well. So we've started to track through our online staff attendance portal where staff use if they are sick for a day, to try to track the numbers of substitute teachers or requests that are filled and unfilled, to look at our daily rates and our percentages that we are able to meet, so that we are adequately assessing the strain and the increased strain on our staffing levels at the building level and across the district. So we've really started to try to pinpoint and hone in, as Dr. Cochran said earlier, at each building, where some of our challenges may lie and try to get ahead of them. But as he also mentioned, sometimes a staff member may wake up and feel quite ill and need to call in for the day and may not be able to give us that advance notice. So we're doing the best we can. Our principals are calling substitute teachers who are on our roster proactively themselves on a daily basis to get as many people in to help us out as possible. But it's an ongoing process and really a district-wide effort. And we have teachers as well who are still volunteering to help out during their prep periods to cover as needed. So, we're tremendously grateful to everyone in the buildings for helping us to keep this ship afloat. So,
I mean, we're very happy with what appears to be virtually no transmission within the building. The flip to that is the number of, well, we have, as of this week, we had 124 students in the last report who were quarantining. The highest before that was 80. We have 33 teachers who were on, or staff rather, who were on quarantine in this last report. The highest before that was 20. Sorry, 29. No, it wasn't. It was 20. So there is a general spike, and it's stressing that piece. We're still working and bringing people in, but every time we bring somebody in, we're getting hit by this. If we have to go out, my guess is that it'll be because we're just so strained with quarantining that we may have to close. Now, that means it may only have to be for a short period of time. It may only have to be one building. But at this point in time, the odds of it not happening over any 2-week span are pretty slim. It's likely that a school will have to close at some point in time.
And when you say close, you mean go remote?
Go fully remote. Yes, I appreciate the clarification.
I have a quick question, Kim, if I may.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead, sir.
How are we doing on our nursing staff throughout the district? How are they handling the stress and strain, and what feedback are you getting from our nursing staff?
I think that's a Mr. Peterson question.
So our nurses have been phenomenal. I cannot thank them enough for the work that they've been doing. Besides their normal, nursing activities day to day with taking care of our staff and students, they've gone above and beyond with dealing with this. Just like with staff, we've had nurses that have had to quarantine, and the other nurses around the district have done a phenomenal job at stepping up and switching buildings and covering for each other. We do have one sub nurse that we've been able to get to bring in, but the nurses have been phenomenal helping, deal with all of this. So we're strained in that as well. There's days where, we hear about a nurse might have to, quarantine or be out, and, late at night, Nurse Kate is calling other nurses and rearranging nurses and asking them to switch buildings. Late at night, and the next morning they show up at a new building and get it done. So it just like staff, it's strained because in this time period, it's really not wise to open a building without a nurse. So we're just like with staff, we're on the knife edge with nursing as well.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? All right. Moving on to the next item on the agenda is the program of studies first read. Board members, I did send you out the cover sheet for that, and I know Mrs. Belcher also put it in the agenda packets. It was just an oversight that it wasn't included. So sorry for that. It will just make this first read go much quicker. I don't know if somebody wants to share their screen to show what those changes are. They look like they were fairly minimal this year. I don't.
Mark, maybe.
Yeah, I'm getting there.
Yeah, I think I have the document now. I found it here.
I've got the document and that, the
Here it goes.
quick
Here
thing that he
it goes.
sent.
So yeah, there it goes. Thank you.
Here you go.
Thanks, Jeff.
So
All right.
Mr. Pedersen, go ahead and you can walk us through this quickly.
Sure. So very few changes this year. Starting with, we removed Latin on pages 28 and pages 70. There is still one reference to Latin, only in that for the New Hampshire scholars, like those kids who have already taken Latin, I didn't want to completely remove that idea that they can still get that New Hampshire scholars for having previously taken Latin. So there's still one little reference to it, but for the most part, Latin has been removed. On page 51 in AP Statistics, there is a proposed change to the prerequisite. You can see there, the proposed and the previous proposed is now just completion of Algebra 2, accelerated with a final grade of B or higher, completion of Introduction to Probability and Statistics with a final grade of B or higher, or department approval. I'm still finding some minor word changes here or there, like there was a reference to guidance rather than school counseling. There was a course that at one time was a half level or a half year course that became a full year, and this was a number of years ago, but it was still marked as half. Changed that to full. There's still some places where it refers to as technology rather than digital literacy. So those are some minor just word changes. And then other changes on page 65. There was, so in our special ed area of the program of studies, there's a number of courses that are all what are called TEP, Transitional Education Program. And there's a course English 2, but it's really actually TEP World Literature. When you look in the English department, sophomore level English is what's called World Literature. So this is just a way to align those TEP classes to what's in sort of the regular sections of the program of study. So it more accurately reflects what that course is. So those 3 courses just got a quick little name change to accurately reflect what they are and to match what's in the regular other sections of the program of studies. And then just, these aren't changes so much as just reminders to the board and to the public. Last year, when I presented the program of studies, we had noted that there's going to be some electives in both the science and the social studies departments that will begin alternating. And by alternating, I mean alternating when they're offered. So there's a number of courses that will only be offered in even starting school years, and then other ones will only be offered in odd starting school years. So this coming school year, 21-22, will be the first year of this alternating electives. And then like every year, the punch list is kind of the Salem and Pinkerton CTE have yet to send us their changes. Sometimes those come before it goes to print. Sometimes those come after it goes to print. So with that being said, I just want to remind the board and the watching public that the online version of the program of studies is really the most up-to-date and the one that's sort of the official one. And one last thing, while I have the floor here, I do like to every year, kind of just announce that we do have a student that designs the cover of the program of studies. So this year it's a senior, Genevieve Harnois, class of 2021. Dessa Landry's graphic design class, and she did a great job on it. The copy that you have doesn't really do it justice, only because I haven't gotten the better digital file, but it will look a lot better. It's a little fuzzy right now, but it's definitely going to look a lot better. I'm excited for this one. And as Mr. Woodworth, he saw it and he goes, that was one that, or a mascot that looks like we used to have a really long time ago. So I appreciate Genevieve, going back in time and bringing back a little bit of history for the program of studies.
Congratulations, Jen.
How many of these booklets do we print?
Off the top of my head, I don't know. I know that there is enough printed for 8th graders, rising 9th graders, and then there's a number that are left over at the high school as well. So I know that definitively all rising ninth graders get one. After that, I'm not sure if every single student gets one, but I don't have that number in front of me.
I don't think so, Mr. Pedersen. I think once they get that initial one, I don't recall that students get it on a yearly. Jenna probably knows.
They get them.
You get them every year?
I have one. I have quite a few.
Yeah, they give them every year. Every student gets one every year.
And mine are all marked up and written all over. We definitely use them.
Same here.
Okay.
Same.
One question, Mr. Pedersen, on the alternate years, and I haven't had a chance to like look through the whole thing. Are you noting that in the course description that this is only offered on odd years or only offered on even years for planning purposes?
Yes, so that sort of alternating grid is on every page that those courses exist, and on those course description or in the little box next to the course.
Oh, I see it. I see it. I'm on page 38 here on one of the engineering. I see it now. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So Kim, were you looking for a motion to push this for first read?
Yes.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Was there a second? I heard somebody.
second.
Me, Barbara.
Sorry, Barbara seconds.
There you go.
Kat, could you take the vote, please?
Mr. Boyle,
Yes.
Dr. Farah,
Yes.
Mrs. Kishka,
Yes.
Ms. Lowe's,
Yes.
Mrs. Mockamer,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mrs. Savage,
Yes.
Mrs. Silva.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Kim, can I just thank Mark for sending out that quick summary on what had changed when he did, because that I know you've been a little busy, Mark, so I appreciate that.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so moving on to budget development. And this is Mr. Dowd's bailiwick. I have a question. In the agenda packet, we received a document that says operating budget 21-22 versus 11-30-2020. What is this document? I mean, I have it open. I'm not really sure why it's titled that.
Version 11 30. That was, yeah, just sort of showing when the last time was that it was reviewed by the public at all.
Well, the public wouldn't have been reviewed it on 11/30.
Well, it was reviewed, I believe, by the budget committee on that date. So it was sort of out there for public view on that date, just to show there have been no changes since then.
Okay.
Actually, there have been no changes since the week before, but
I was just a little confused about what that meant because I knew we didn't.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure what that.
It's like I've got two dates versing each other. It's like, no, version 11/30. I didn't know what to call it. Version 1, version 2. I'll just call it the date, version 11/30.
Mm-hmm.
So do you want to start with the operating budget?
Yes, let's start with the operating budget. And, you know, as we're seeing here, we have an almost 4% increase in the operating budget. We are looking at, even with $250,000 being saved with the SAU withdrawal. Clearly, you know, our special education costs continue to rise, transportation's contractual rising, and then we have salary increases that the voters vote on, but we also have about $1.6 million in benefits increasing here. And, you know, board members have approached me about the budget, the fact that, you know, we are in a situation here this year where we're looking at over $1 million in teacher retirement increase. Next year, we'll probably just see an incremental increase. But, you know, the guess is that as the state budget probably takes a hit here in the next year or two, we're going to see probably large increases in benefits being pushed back down to the districts. And there's a feeling that we need to do something here to try to address this large increase in the budget. And really looking at what we generally maintain for open positions or non-filled positions that are being carried in the budget, somewhere of the order of $1 million to $2 million. And also looking at the changes in student population as well as the organizational structure of the district. I think that we need to have just some discussion related to looking at what sort of personnel changes we can make here that may favorably impact the budget without having any negative impact to the district itself.
Students.
Does somebody want to jump in here? No, I'm happy to keep talking.
Sheila's got her hand up. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, I can say just from a Sandown perspective, Sandown took a pretty big hit in their taxes this year. They took a $1.40 raise in there per thousand. So, you know, it's the same story. Pretty much it's the same story every year with Sandown, but Danville's went down this year. But Sandown is we're hurting. So we have to do something. And what that something is, I don't know. But we can't look at a $3 million increase, especially in the climate of this district right now. It's not a fantastic climate.
I have spoken with the superintendent about how to approach this budget and the impact of the budget. I've also spoken, obviously, with legal counsel, and looking at what the board's role is. I feel that what we should be doing as a board is moving to direct the superintendent to bring forward a report that will contain recommended reductions in staff and programs in the district that will reduce this budget between $1.5 million and $2 million, so that the board can review those at their December 17th meeting.
I agree with that. Are you looking for a motion, Kim?
Yes.
I'll make that motion.
So Sean is going to make the motion to move to direct the superintendent to bring forward a report containing recommended reductions in staff and programs that will reduce the FY22 budget by between $1.5 million and $2 million, so that the board can review it at our next meeting.
I'll second it.
Sheila seconds. Is there a discussion on this motion? Sarah?
So I'll be voting against this motion, not because I don't believe that changes do need to be explored, but I believe that ultimately it goes against the mission of the district, which is to engage all students in challenging and relevant learning opportunities, encompassing high aspirations and personal growth, and to start exploring reductions in programs and staff goes completely against the mission. So I know I'm only one vote, but I will be voting against this motion. And I just needed to say that.
So to counter that, the implication that you've made is that any reductions in staffing or changes to programming equates to not adhering to the mission of the district. And I would say, I would disagree with that respectfully. The fact is that we've seen declining enrollment year on year, that we're looking at serious impacts to the taxpayers of this district, which as a board member, I have an obligation both to the educational aspects of the district, but also to the taxpayers of this district. And I think as a board member that we need to be looking at options as we continue to see taxes rise throughout these communities, while at the same time continuing to have a strong and excellent education and offer the students the programs that they need. So that being said, I'll turn it over to Jen.
I just wanted to make a comment that, that sounds like a big number. But when I did look at the salary line detail that was in our packet I think it was last meeting, we had it in our agenda packets.
Yes.
There were
Numerous.
several vacant positions in there, unfilled positions in there. So I do think it is responsible to have the superintendent, you know, take a look at all of that and come back to us and let us know, you know, the plans for next year and how we can maybe address that and get the budget down a bit.
Sheila?
As Jen said, I'm a big fan of the salary line detail. There is numerous open positions, and there are many that have been open for more than a year that have never been filled. So I have to agree with you, Dr. Farah, as far as the mission, because there are some positions in there that haven't been filled in 2 years. So I don't understand where it goes against the mission if they haven't been filled in 2 years.
Sarah, then Kristen?
So my primary concern is the language in the motion that states a reduction in staff and programs. Eliminating unfilled staffing positions that have remained vacant for numerous years for various reasons is different than examining programs that are going to get removed or discontinued due to the insight of, and with all due respect, Dr. Cochran, a very new superintendent to our district who does not have the historical knowledge of the goals, the long-term goals of some of these programs. And while I understand, yes, it makes sense to review and get a better understanding of why there are vacancies, why positions have been left open. Do they need to be open still? Is it just we haven't found applicants? We're still actively looking to fill them, but we just haven't found qualified applicants? Or is it just those were a placeholder? And you know what? We don't need to have placeholders in our budget any longer. But to expand that into programs is very concerning to me. And I believe that it goes against the mission of the district to do that.
Kim, my comment simply, I mean, we're just asking Dr. Cochran to look at this and come back to us with things for our discussion. So he's going to be looking at these, bringing the numbers to us, and then we all get to talk about them. So we all have the understanding of the history, the background, these programs, but it gives us the ability to see where the potentials are to cut. Just because we're asking him to do this doesn't mean that this is a definite thing or something that comes before us becomes definite. It's for us to discuss at that point. So I see no harm in this motion and asking him to look to try to bring this number down. As you said, I believe it's fiscally responsible to do that and to figure it out, especially looking ahead as to what those numbers might be down the road. If we can start to manage things now, it's going to make it better.
Hear, hear.
So that if all of a sudden we get hit again in 2 years from New Hampshire with the retirement and things of that nature, at least we're starting a path. We're starting a conversation and we're starting to get some insight into where things might be able to change. So I'm going to be voting in favor of this motion just to get the information for the purpose of discussion.
Okay, Brian?
Yeah, very briefly, I support the motion and it's really the job of the school board to do this kind of thing. So you should be looking at the bottom line kind of stuff on an annual basis. And I believe the way we're going about it makes sense, that you're asking the superintendent to get their feedback versus us directing, versus the school all by itself trying to make a decision without any input from administration. So again, this is, if you look at the RSAs, and this is a big part of the school board's responsibility. Budget, to oversee the budget. You have responsibility to taxpayers, to the employees, to the student, everybody. You represent all kinds of people here. So we need information to act on. So I think that's what we're asking for.
Is there any further discussion on the motion?
Nope, call the question.
Kat, can you take a roll call vote, please?
Boyle,
Yes.
Dr. Farah,
Yes.
Mrs. Kishka,
Yes.
Ms. Lowe's,
Yes.
Mrs. Muckamore,
No.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mrs. Savage,
Yes.
Mrs. Silva.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other discussion under the budget? Okay. Moving on to facilities. In your package, you'll see there's an update on the indoor air quality. There were 2 bids on the air quality HVAC assessment, one from Train out of Bedford, New Hampshire, and the other out of American Test and Balance. The difference was quite substantial. The contract will be awarded to Train out of Bedford. And thank you, Mr. Dowd, I think.
Certainly.
Those are, that work will be conducted immediately. Is that they're going to be contacted, right, Mr. Dowd, and we're going to move forward with this?
Yep, they've already been contacted and engaged. We really have no time to spare on this, so.
Great. And then it looks like our roof in Sandown North will be complete before Christmas, hopefully.
Weather permitting.
Are there any questions on the facilities update on the roofs or the HVAC? At Train, as part of this awarding of this contract, we'll start to look at, we'll assess all the HVAC systems within the district and give us an idea of which ones we should be looking at replacing this year as we have funds for, depending on the current capital budget. And then this will inform us in the next few weeks as we try to look at the the equipment that will be kind of earmarked into the next year's budget. We have in the current proposed budget around roughly $1 million for capital improvements. And so this will probably be quite a bit of it. And we will also need to be working on the capital improvement plan in general to see what else needs to come forward for the next year.
Kim, I have a quick question.
Yep.
Actually, it's for Mr. Dowd. Mr. Dowd, I got really confused, I guess, at the last budget meeting when we were discussing the grant.
Yes.
Are we, what exactly is the status of that? Is that all the work has to be completed by the end of the month,
By 12:30, yeah. Yeah.
So the work has to be completed also?
Yep.
I thought we had an extension on that if we had the plans in place. Am I wrong, Dr. Cochran? Wasn't that what was said?
No, if it's a project that requires, for example, implementation of something, that project must be completely finished by December, I believe it's 30th, not 31st. Otherwise, I'm sorry?
It is the 30th, yeah.
Yeah. So for example, if it were an HVAC project and we cannot literally turn the switch on and have it run, then we cannot use it in the grant.
Okay, so I can't be the only one concerned about this, am I?
Well, my understanding, Mr. Dowd, was that we had enough other projects that we would be able to put them towards that 600,000. And I was actually surprised at the budget committee hearing or meeting to hear that that was not the case. I came away from a previous meeting with the impression that we had things that we were going to put towards that $600,000.
I think we're going to get there, Kim. I'd much rather have, like for this project here, when Train goes in and they do their assessment, I'm really hoping that they'll be able to get through their entire assessment so that we may be able to apply the entire 140,000 against the grant. But in addition to that, I'd really like to have the equipment recommendations, but there's no way that we can go through, excuse me, we have to go through process, our own internal process for bidding and our fees. And we also have to comply with federal guidelines. We'd have to send everything out for bid over a certain threshold. And I think any of the work that we're going to have to undertake if any of our systems do need to be replaced is going to have to go through that process. And that's going to push it beyond the January 1st date. I really would like to put a lot more of that in this particular grant And that's why it's so important that the RFP be accepted and acted upon earlier this week, so the train can begin their planning process, so we can get as much of this process in, as much of their project in before 12:30. I'm sure we're going to find ways to be able to use that grant, but I really would like to be able to maximize its use on the equipment and that sort of thing. We do have the CARES Act grant, which actually goes beyond 12:30. So sometimes there can be a little bit of shifting, and those expenses which we can't take care of in the current year, we can't incur in the current year before 12:30, we can then just shift to that CARES Act ESSER grant. So there is a little bit of juggling that we can do. Really would like to get more of that, more of this project undertaken under that $200 per student grant. But we'll find everything we can to put into it. I think we'll get there. I really was hoping we could do some equipment. I just don't think we're going to get there based on process. And
we
we
just
can't
need
even
to
have
fully
the
understand though that what a given project, where its cost is going to be coming from. I mean, and paid for. Is it going to hit the operating budget, or is it going to hit a grant? That's going to vastly affect members' decisions on where to go on a given issue.
Oh,
so if a grant is potentially not going to be there, where we're going to miss it, that's going to be a big driving force. Is this going to hit our budget now versus not? I mean, 140 grand is just one component of it.
Oh yeah, yeah, and I agree with that. And I think that the other component is the equipment installation, replacement of equipment, and that I think it's going to be a budget item or a CARES Act item in the new year.
Mr. Dowd, correct me if I'm wrong, but we have the ability to rewrite that grant as many times as we want, right?
Yep.
So if I'm not recommending that we put the HVAC in now or not, but if we did put it in and weren't be able to hit the timeline, we could pull that, we could rewrite the grant, put other legitimate expenses in, use that, and then use money that we have more time flexibility with for the HVAC. So
Correct.
do we have a fair amount of flexibility with that?
That's right.
And we've been literally been told by the DOE that we can rewrite it as many times as we want.
Yep. So basically anything that's incurred before 12:30, HVAC related, or really anything else, any of the non-budgeted pandemic related expenses that we have before 12:30 are going to be applied against the $200 per student grant. That's the bigger grant. Anything beyond that goes into the ESSER grant. Obviously, my preference is to get as much as we can into the $200 per student grant. But the 140,000, I'm optimistic we'll be able to have that work done. I want their recommendations. I want the equipment delivered and installed before that date. In fact, Dr. Cochran, I believe you've been part of the same discussions and conference with the DOE as I have. Even having the equipment ordered and brought on site, it needs to be installed, flip the switch, be able to turn it on. I don't think that's a terrible thing. I really just want to be able to get as much of this HVAC under this $200 per student grant as we can. We've got a lot of expenses going, non-budgeted expenses going through 12:30 anyway. So we're okay one way or the other.
Okay, that's all I wanted to check on.
Yeah. Barbara?
Yeah, I was just checking the sanitizer and PPE. Can we use that? Have the grant go for that?
Absolutely. Sanitizer, PPE, pandemic float subs, the costs associated with class coverage for any of our paras or our teachers.
Good. Yeah.
These are all not, and along with all the associated FICA or retirement implications that go along with that. These are all non-budgeted pandemic related expenses. So yeah, absolutely. A lot of the online learning resources that we have, Chromebooks, those sorts of things, all part of that mix already.
Good.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, any more discussion on that topic? Facilities update. Okay. Moving on to policies. Jen?
Sorry, let me get my packet back up. Oh, we are just on second read for the ones we brought up last meeting.
Okay, hang on, I'm just pulling this back up here.
And then once we get through that, I do have a notice for next meeting as well.
All right, so we are doing a second read on BEDB, BEDC, and BEDD.
Right.
Kim,
Agenda,
I'd like to-
forum, and rules of order.
Okay.
Kim, I'd
Sheila?
like to make a motion for acceptance, second read of BEDB,
Yeah.
BEDC, and BEDD.
Okay, is there a second on that?
I'll second it.
That was Kristen. Kat, can you take a roll call vote, please?
Could we just, I'm still new. So what does acceptance of second read mean? Does that mean we accept the policy as written?
We're adopting it.
We're
So
adopting it.
last meeting, Barbara, we did the first read. I don't think you're at the last meeting.
No.
We did
So-
first read at the last meeting.
There is one thing about the way, this is about the electronic meetings, and it sounds like we can only do the electronic meeting under emergency, but I'm trying to understand if we would be able to continue doing every other meeting remote under the way this policy is written.
Well, we are an emergency, right? We're still, the governor still has us in a state of emergency, so.
Okay. All right, that was my question.
Okay. Any other
Once
questions?
that's lifted, then no, we wouldn't be able to continue to do them remote, I don't believe.
No, I don't think so.
But while we're still, yeah, under that emergency order.
And so Barbara, all policies that come before the board have to have a first and second read unless there is an emergency or some reason that we cannot do that. And they also need to be noticed. And Jen will pop on to the next one once we give you an example of when there is a case where we need to have an emergency policy, a waiver. So that way you're always seeing the policy twice before it gets to final approval. It's rare to have, sometimes you can have first and second reading at the same meeting, but it's unusual, and it's usually because there's a real reason that policy needs to get enacted quickly.
Okay, and these ones didn't have the dates mentioned in them, right? There
What
was one
dates?
that had one that said starting such and such a date, and it sounded more like an action item than a policy about.
These all become, as soon as we approve them, they become active.
Revised and active.
They get dates in the top left corner, Barbara, of when they were
Oh,
originally.
no,
adopted.
this was in the body of the policy. I'm trying to find it again.
It's in one of those three.
I thought so. I thought it was when I was reading through these. Never mind. I don't have it right on top of my head, so we'll just let it go. It's not that important.
I don't see dates. I'm looking at them quickly,
It
Barbara.
might be the other one. Maybe
I
it's
don't see dates in them.
It might be the one, Barbara, that we'll talk about in a minute, the one that we need to,
yeah, it might be in there.
it's in that
Okay.
one because that one talks about the superintendent needs to put a plan in place by XX
Yes,
date.
that.
Okay, so it's
Yeah,
the next
that's
one.
the
we're
next
That's
gonna
the
do.
next topic, Barbara.
So let's vote on this second read. Kat, can you take the roll call vote?
Mr. Boyle,
Yes.
Dr. Farah,
Yes.
Mrs. Kishka,
Yes.
Ms. Lowe's,
Yes,
Mrs. Mockamer,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mrs. Savage,
Yes.
Mrs. Silva.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Now I'll turn it over to Jen because there's in the board package, you'll notice that there's a policy JLDBB, suicide prevention and response. And this does talk about a date, Barbara, you're right, no later than March 30th, 2021. We have to develop a district policy. So Jen, can you inform us what we need to do here?
So
on
the
this one?
policy committee took a look at this tonight, right before we met here. And we're looking to put this policy out to everybody. We can, I think it's in our packet, actually. Is it in our
It
packet?
is, yes, it
Yes.
is, yeah.
And then for our next school board meeting, we're looking to waive the first read and adopt that policy. So the purpose of adopting the policy is because, as Kim said, we do have to have a plan in place by a certain date, and that's going to involve developing a procedure. And technically, the district needs a policy to work off of when they develop the procedure that's going to be adopted.
Right.
So, did I
So
get that
this is-
right, Dr. Cochran?
Yes.
Okay,
So this is serving as public notice that we will do a first and second read of this policy at the next meeting.
correct.
First,
So we'd
second
like-
reading adoption.
We'd like to adopt it at the next meeting. And so that we can move forward with the plan and procedure that we need to have in place.
Okay, so everybody, if you could review that for the next meeting, because that will become final after we take that vote in the next meeting. All right.
Got it.
Warrant articles is next on the agenda. You'll see in the packets the drafts of the warrant. One of the things that has been added, thanks to Barbara and the Energy Committee, is there is an Article XX for authorization to lease district property for solar panels. We are looking to try to get this on the warrant so that if we choose to maybe move forward with solar, we need a power purchase agreement in order to do that. And so it's always kind of like the chicken and the egg here. So if we don't have this on the warrant, we can't really do much with solar next year. And I would anticipate that, given what's going on in the government, that we may be looking at some, incentives here for solar. So I think it's prudent for us to get this onto the warrant article for this coming year.
And just mentioning that this is not to expend money. The power purchase agreement is something that does not require capital outlay.
So this has been sent out to Jim O'Shaughnessy for review. So this this warrant article could change substantially, but we've put it on here as a draft.
Yeah, I support that, but I think one of the things that you're gonna have to add in it, because I know from the town we had to do this, is mention about a long-term lease, and the duration of the terms, I think, needed to be defined like up to 30 years or something like that, to that effect. Just having it an open-ended one, I think, wouldn't be
Prudent.
legal, or probably will not pass legal review, but we'll hear back from Jim and see what he says.
Yeah, we sent this out to Jim. So I'm sure there are other districts that have done this that he's been involved with. The other one that's always on there is the capital reserve funds by surplus, appropriate up to $250,000 to go into the reserve fund. Speaking of that, and I would like this taken as an action, I would like to know that the money from Mr. Dowd, I think you would know this by now, the money for the Danville kitchen that should have come out of the trustee of trust funds. Weren't you meeting with the Plastow trustees? What happened on that?
It's been approved by the Plastow trustees, and we're just exchanging bank information now to make the wire happen.
So we are essentially getting an input of almost $250,000 into the capital budget.
Correct. It's more of a cash. It's more of an infusion of cash, but we will be getting additional money in. Yes. Yeah.
So once this happens.
Wait, Sheila. Okay. I don't think it's just. I think it has to go into the capital, because when this was put into that reserve, I would imagine it was put in based on EPV, not ADM.
Yep.
Okay. So when you say it's just coming in as cash, it's cash that's purposed for capital.
It's replacing capital. Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that. I don't want us to get into trouble for putting it into the general operating budget. Sorry, Sheila, go ahead.
That's all right. Can we get a balance on our capital reserve at some point?
Sure. I don't have it, but I can put together a quick summary.
Right. Well, next meeting, that would be great.
Yep.
And plus that capital money from the trustee would be going in there. So just a rough idea of what we have in there.
No, Sheila, actually that money is coming out of the trust.
Okay.
It's coming out, and we took a substantial amount out for the PAC. So I would expect, knowing what I know of where that fund was a couple years ago, we're probably in the $300,000 to $400,000 range.
Well, that's why I'm wondering, because I've lost track of it.
Yeah, I think we're a little higher than that, but one thing that the board should consider, and I think it's a compliment to the board, it's a compliment to our facilities department that we've been able to spend all that, This warrant article traditionally, and I don't know any other way to do it. Like I don't know any other way that you really can do it. But typically it's from, and it's very confusing, from that unassigned fund balance available, which funds were apportioned as capital expenses in 2021. So we really haven't had any substantial contributions to the capital reserve fund because we've spent all the, we've spent the budget.
Right.
We've done a great job spending the budget, getting the projects done, getting them accomplished. But that's really left a little bit of a hole where we really haven't had contributions, any substantial contributions in the past couple of years.
Right.
Before I came on board, I think we were doing like 250 every year because we always seem to have money, left. Projects weren't getting done. Now they're getting done.
I was going to say, and that's why we had all the problems. So we had to get the projects done.
Well, I would like to propose that we take we add another warrant article then, or at least think about adding a warrant. Capital Reserve Fund by appropriation versus by surplus.
I would agree with that in spirit. I would actually think that maybe we should look at, I mean, let's be honest with ourselves here. Do we feel at the end of this fiscal year that we're going to have $250,000 left in that capital reserve? Well, earmarked so that it can flow into the capital reserve. And I would say no at this point.
No.
So this warrant article isn't worth really what it's even printed. It's wishful thinking. What if we just replace that with, to raise and appropriate $250,000 to be put into the capital reserve fund, and, simple, normal warrant article to put money into a capital reserve fund?
I'm not against that. I'm fine with taking this one off and putting that one on because we've consistently had so little left in capital. I mean, wasn't it like between $30,000 and $50,000 the last couple of years?
Yep. Because
Like 1 year was maybe 24,000 or something. Yeah.
Right.
We haven't had any effective contributions at least probably the past 3 years. And in fact, if you recall, we get that letter every year from the DRA disallowing it because we don't have any money, any capital.
Right.
We have a surplus, just not capital surplus.
Right.
Right.
And so do we have some projects that we're specifically thinking of that will need this 250,000, roofs, HVAC?
Well,
No, Barbara, this isn't, what this means, Barbara, is if there's capital money, like right now we have $1 million roughly in the operating budget that's earmarked for capital. If we don't spend all that and we have $300,000 left, 250,000 will go into this fund. It will get pushed into this fund. That's what it just sits there. And then once it's in that fund, the only way to get it out is to have the voters approve the board to take it out.
So when we did the PAC, the siding and all of the PAC, that money came out of that reserve.
Okay, but what I hear you saying, I think, is that we want to actually tax to get a capital reserve fund, restored with another 250,000, but we don't have a project that we're going to use it for.
Correct, but
is build that capital reserve fund so that, because most of the projects, most of the big capital projects are more than $250,000. So when we have a big capital project, it's helpful to have money in that fund to be able to ask the taxpayers to pull from and put toward. So it's almost like you are, paying a little bit every year to put toward a big project 5 years from now, so that you're not getting such a big tax hit to do a project down the road that needs to be done. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so it totally makes sense, but I'm just not getting what the project is that we're saving for.
We're not saving for any project right now. We're putting, it's almost like you leave some money in your bank account in case your refrigerator dies. It's kind of like and I don't want to say it's a rainy day fund because you can't pull it out very easily. The voters have to approve it, but it's this way. Instead of, if we don't put any money in there for 5 years, instead of having, $1 million there to pull from, we're going to have to raise and appropriate that much money from the voters. So it's almost like, building up condominium associations have a reserve so that way, if there's a project, you can not have to.
I totally get the purpose, but I don't see, my condo association also has like a maintenance book that says, we're going to replace this every so often, and this is how much it's going to be to
Well,
redo the
that's-
asphalt.
We have a 5-year CIP plan, Barbara.
Okay, so that's what I want to hear is like, okay, we have a plan for how this is going to.
Well, you're pushing right off the bat, a solar thing.
That's no money.
That's not going to be
That's not
capital.
money.
What's no, oh, so when we get solar, it's going to be free?
It's
If we
going to be
enter-
built by a third party. They're going to reap the benefit of all the tax credits and all the stuff that
understand.
businesses can do. And then we're just going to get electricity at a reduced rate.
But so you're going to pay. We're going to be paying something. Is my point.
Well, we'll only pay if it makes sense. If they can't give us electricity for less than we're paying now, what's the point?
Can we move on? This is not a solar
Sorry.
topic.
Okay.
Well, no, it's.
All right. So let's think about, I kind of agree with Sean that maybe we just make this capital reserve fund by appropriation to raise and appropriate. Is
Only
everybody in
because we're
agreement?
spending it and we're doing well taking care of our facilities right now. That's the issue. We're doing too well taking care of our facilities.
And we've drained down the bank account.
Right.
Okay.
Well, we're spending what's in the we're spending what is
Yeah.
in the budget.
In the
every
budget.
year.
We're behind. You
On
got to spend more
capital.
money in your facilities. We're behind.
Behind and we're playing catch up, but we're doing it all within the operating budget. We haven't been taking money out of that except for the PAC wall.
Exactly. And the PAC paid for itself. We paid for the PAC with this capital reserve savings account. That's how we paid for that. So we didn't have to hit up the taxpayers for $500,000 for it.
And I'll just throw one other thing into the mix here. Maybe we don't have this warrant article, or maybe we leave this warrant article on as it is, even though it probably is not going to put any money into there, with the realization that we, in essence, just pulled $250,000 out of that fund because we didn't realize that it never got pulled when the Danville kitchen was done.
So then we're gonna pull it on out, put it in our general ledger, and then if this warrant article as written should pass, it's gonna go back. Well, 250 of it would go back.
Yeah, well, yes, that's true. I mean, we could look at it that way because
Yeah.
it's.
Just making a round circle. Back in.
But it's properly accounted for, and that's
Exactly.
the problem.
No,
I would
agree.
actually like to know how did this transpire, and try to figure a corrective action so that things like this don't happen again. That's what I think is more of the issue that we need to figure out.
All right.
This predates my time,
I know.
Sean, and we were looking to get it resolved actually last year, and with the change in trustees from Danville, I didn't want to put too much on the new trustee all at once.
No. And if it's fair, the blame is, and it's not kind of like a blame. I look at it as corrective updates to the process. Like every year we look at in December, pick a date, and then we say by December 1st, all warrant articles will be relooked at to make sure that the piper's been paid. Appropriate funds have been moved around so that logistics of stuff, and that's what we do in our town, because we had an issue like this, and I corrected it by saying all warrant articles will be paid in beginning of December so that it can flow through the process. The banks will have it on their December sheet so that the trustees, when they do their balancing, they'll have all the warrant articles for that year addressed in that year that they have, so that their year-end summaries are nice and pretty. But you have to take action and make it happen.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so that's it. Warrant articles. Any other questions on warrant articles?
Nope.
We all good? Hold on, I gotta pull back my agenda and see where I am. I think we're on articles, action. So we'll hit warrant articles again at the next meeting, but think about what we just discussed as we decide what to do with that capital reserve one. On the administrator's report, I know that we do have some personnel that are retiring here. So Dr. Cochran, I don't know if you want to I have them up here, or if you have
Okay.
other things that you want to mention.
Just real quickly, the people in the district that are going above and beyond on a daily basis has been incredible, and people have been going the extra mile, putting students first. And I'm just, so thrilled with the work that's going on. I just wanted to reach out and speak to two individuals together in particular, and that would be Mr. Peterson and Nurse Kate. Pretty much if my phone goes off after 8, most of the time it's Mr. Peterson, and with information about a situation that's breaking. And he may be working with one principal the next night, one night, and another principal another night. And while everybody else is doing their part, he has been so central through the entire thing. And the other person is Nurse Kate. The number of times that I've been on email exchanges or phone calls or text messages about these situations, they're breaking, they're still going, and everybody else is doing their part. But the crucial role of these two people in everything that's been COVID related, from communication to staying on top of protocols, reaching out to people, they have been involved in basically everything. And we would not be where we are right now without those two. So just a reach out to thank those two. I know people appreciate them. And I just want to let the board know that we have two people just doing a fantastic job for us day in and day out. So thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you guys and gals.
Yeah.
By the way, he just sent me another message to go out that everybody had to approve. So Mark, your message is approved. It can go out now.
All right, thank you. Dr. Cochran, did you want to do the personnel report? I have it here. I can say it if you don't have it up.
No, we do have a retirement letter from Cindy Wood, enrichment specialist at Danville Elementary. And as I read through this, she talks about, I'm ready to begin my new adventure in my life and have more time with my family and friends. In total, I've been teaching for 40 years. And then in parentheses, I can't believe how much time has flown by, and 32 years of Timberlane with wonderful memories. My heart is full of respect and admiration for my students, my colleagues, and the many administrators who worked beside me during my time in Timberlane. Sincerely, Cindy Wood. I'm a little concerned because the numbers that I would have would be similar to hers, but I wish her well, and I will try to pop by and see her at Danville sometime in the next week or so.
Okay, thank you. I think we can do these all in one motion, just because of the whole roll call.
I'd like to make a motion, Kim. I'd like to accept the retirement of Cindy Wood, Vincent Lombard, and Paula Polito with gratitude and thanks for their service and for everything that they've done. We fully appreciate it.
I'll second it.
Okay, so there's a motion and a second. Just for those that are listening, Mr. Lombard was with the district for 21 years.
And Mrs. Polito was with the district for 11 in Sandown North. So
We appreciate all their service to the district and wish them well in their future endeavors. So there's a motion and a second. Could we take a roll call vote on those three retirements, Kat?
Mr. Boyle,
Yes.
Dr. Farah,
Yes.
Mrs. Kishka,
Yes.
Ms. Lowe's,
yes.
Mrs. Malcolmer,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mrs. Savage,
Yes.
Mrs. Silva.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Cochran, any other administrator personnel?
Nope.
No, okay.
No, not Timberlane, no.
Okay.
That's all we care about.
Committee reports and reports to the school board. I know Energy Committee hasn't met. Brian, I know Budget Committee, I'm looking at my screen here. Brian, Budget Committee met last on Monday.
Yes, the budget committee met last Monday, and I guess, the budget committee just is still in the receiving end, I guess, of people's presentations. And I'm trying to think the budget that was discussed. There was a brief conversation about the SAU budget How that
Special ed,
Yeah.
special ed.
special
Also.
ed, Beth Rincon joined us, and which is definitely nice to have Beth Rincon back in the house helping us. And because that's an area where we need a lot of help. So, and then they only have, I think, one more meeting left, budget committee.
Okay.
So, and I think they, as a committee, there's been no discussion in terms of like the total budget. You know, Jeff has presented the total budget, but there's been no tradition over the years. There's been conversation about the budget in total, but it's been more of a receiving information versus where do you want to go with this? So anyway,
Okay.
maybe they're just
All
waiting
right.
for the school board to do, if we're going to do something with staffing.
Okay. Jen, anything else on policy or curriculum? I don't know.
Nope. We've got, I think, 5 coming next week for first read, and we should be moving along. One of them is bringing one of the policies over from SAU over to Timberlane.
Great.
So
Okay. And thank you for Jen did take a look at SAU policies and is working on ensuring that we have all those in place as we transition out of the SAU 55. And my understanding from something that came across my email is we will be SAU 106. Is that correct?
Hmm.
Our new number will be 106.
Nice even number. I like that.
Kristen, did you have anything on the superintendent search or not? Yes.
Sure. I mean, nothing. We have moved forward and chosen the committee. So I will take a minute and just announce the names of who's going to be on the committee. Of course, myself and Sandra Allaire, Julie Hammond from the Timberlane Budget Committee, Scott Strange from the high school, Lou Broad, who is also from the high school, Megan Kelker from the middle school, Kelly Bennett, who is also from the middle school, Dr. Russ Marino from Danville Elementary, Lisa Cartwright from Pollard, and from the town of Atkinson, we have Jean Marie Ward. From Sandown, we have Stephen Finnegan. From Danville, we have Suzanne Hughes, and from Plasto, we have Katie Knutson. We are also going to be appointing an alternate. This was a last minute decision by Sandra and I based on the fact that with COVID and the fact we're hearing all the quarantines and things of that nature, we want to try to be able to have a board of 13. So we thought it would be smart just to get somebody else on board as an extra just in case. We have that person in mind and we reached out, but it was a late reach out, so we don't have a confirmation on that. So I don't want to release a name at this point, but that will be added to our committee list as an alternate, and I can discuss that at our next meeting or when we post the actual committee list. I also want to take the time to thank everyone that did show an interest in serving on the committee. We appreciate everyone's willingness to participate. We had a lot of people that wanted to, many qualified names, and it was really difficult to choose who we were going to go with. But we think right now we have a very diverse and capable group, and we're looking forward to moving forward in the process. And we will be hopefully setting up our first Zoom meeting next week. So that's all I got for you tonight, Kim.
Thank you. Sarah?
So curriculum met and it was really actually pretty short, and because what we were doing was prepping for the program of studies presentation tonight. So yeah, it was actually pretty effective and just kind of confirming the changes and making sure that everything was ready for this evening.
Okay, thank you. Is there any, what was it? There was something I wanted to say. We still need to work through the SAU withdrawal, and probably after the first of the year, we will be probably need to approach Hampstead again and negotiate out the final long-term liabilities on the district to figure out how we're going to move forward with that. The union negotiating team continues to meet every Tuesday, working with the CBAs to try to move those collective bargaining agreements forward to as we approach the time where we need to draft warrant articles. Anything else? If not, I am going to seek a motion to enter into a non-public session under 91A:3, paragraph 2, sections A and C on personnel matters. And I do not anticipate that we will come out, there will be no action coming out of this. And we will just probably come back into the public and then adjourn. So I'm looking for a motion.
I'll make the motion.
I think Sheila wins and Sean gets the second. Kat?
Guys got to be faster.
Mr. Boyle,
Yes.
Dr. Farah,
Yes.
Mrs. Kishka,
Yes.
Ms. Lowe's,
Yes.
Mrs. Muckamer,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
You shut off.
Yes.
Mrs. Savage,
Yes.
Mrs. Silva.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so you'll need to leave this meeting and enter into the other Zoom meeting. So
You win, Sheila. So you're gonna be good in game show, Sheila. You're very
I'm telling
quick.
you, I'm right in there.
we will see you on the other side here. Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.
Bye.
Good night.
Thank you.